Here we go. Happy summer, everyone. I'm Prue Peiffer, and it's really my great pleasure to be here this evening and kick off this conversation between Jane Pine and Jane Holmes, which is ostensibly about Jane's fierce and funny new suite of paintings, but I imagine will end up in unexpected corners of their long friendship, too. And I've been explicitly asked to not give a traditional introduction. Not that these two acclaimed artists in their respective fields need much of one anyway for this crowd. So I will not mention any of their staggering creations, their prodigious past awards or publications or projects or exhibitions. But I do want to say very briefly what brings us here together this evening, and that is the miracle that is the artist residency. That precious space and time to work, and the community of fellow artists and writers that buoy it up. Jane and AM met at Yaddo and have been friends for decades. Jane and I met at McDowell this past fall and have been friends for months. And as I learned, in part through the wise counsel of Jane, who, as many of you probably know, is a closet mathematician, time actually takes on different numerical value at residencies. So we've actually known each other for at least a few years. I went to McDowell as a residency newbie with a lot of anxiety about what I was leaving behind, 3 little kids for 3 weeks, and what I needed to make of my time there. And I can say without exaggeration that it changed my life. My writer's studio was just across a field that used to have roaming horses, I was told, and up a little hill from the Red Barn studio where Jane was painting. Jane and I would walk home together after dinner in a round of tornado ping pong don't pass, down the rutted roads that wound through dark woods. It was chilly, thick trek through the trees, and it was very beautiful. The weak beam of our bobbing flashlight and the crunch of our boots along the pebbles in beat to our conversation, and then we would always just stop and turn off the light and just look up at the stars in silence. I'll never forget going up the hill to Jane's studio for the first time and seeing the paintings that she had made there. I'll mention one that stopped me short, which hopefully you all had a chance to see downstairs, and hopefully we'll hear more about in a minute. It's as if a mob from another painting is rushing through a still red monochrome. What is all that stuff doing in this pristine modernist field? I could hear the rocket's red glare, the paint dripping off symbols. Even back in November, the work predicted our current moment and reflected a hideous past one, and managed to have a dark and beautiful sense of humor about the whole thing. It reminded me of a quote I had just read in my studio at McDowell, where I was starting work on a book about the artist Joan Mitchell. Painting, Mitchell said, is the only thing in the world that is both continuous and still. What a privilege in this mad world to be here together now with these two brilliant people, to take a little time to look closely and to listen and to keep going. So with that, I turn things over to these amazing people, and I think they're going to talk for about 30 minutes. We will take questions. So get your questions ready.
Someone let us know when it's about 30 minutes. Once Jane and I start talking.
Yeah, maybe a few hours.
30 minutes to go by. Hi, Jane. There's so many things. Hi, everybody. So many things I wanted to ask you about. One of the things I was thinking about in all of your work is this simultaneous, incredible joy and playfulness, and then enormous anxiety.
Yeah. It's funny because those words together are in artist statements of mine from like 25 years ago. Did you?
Yeah.
And I was recently cleaning out the office and going through piles of old papers. I'm like, wow, that comes there all the time. And the way I best understand that, I think for those of you who've known me a long time, I think my natural temperament is a very joyful, optimistic person, but I seem to have found myself alive in a very anxiety-ridden time. And I do really believe, James lives with me, he knows I can be a big grouch, but I think my true self and the way I try to move through the world is to be really optimistic and always see the best. But I think my paintings are the most interesting when those two emotions come together.
There seems to be also an inescapable, I wouldn't even call it desire, need to bear witness.
Yeah.
And to account for bearing witness.
Well, I thought, like, in the first months of Trump 2.0, I just kept thinking about the privilege of living in New York, where everything still felt kind of fine. You know, I thought, this is so wild, like we're the birds are so sweet, and they're very
So I don't generally live the same, I have the same birds and the same problem all the time. Birds.
You know, I just kept thinking, wow, you know, we're watching the news and ICE raids and every horrible thing going on and people being fired by the thousands and the CDC and this and that. And then we're just in New York, like still in our completely diverse world and our wonderful city where there's a million things going on. And I thought, this particular state is so fascinating because I don't know how long it's going to continue, where most of us feel untouched but so aware of it. And I
said that.
Yeah. And I'm not even sure it still is like that. I mean, I think, you know, maybe 12, 13 months ago, I thought, I kept thinking how lucky we are. I don't even know anymore. I feel like everyone I know is having kind of a deeper anxiety attack and mental health problem from the whole thing.
But having known you a long time, I would say it's also been in your work.
Yeah.
Well before that.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm curious both about painting as meditative practice in some way for you, and also about the mathematician in you, and then mark making in some way.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, for those who don't know, I started out life wanting to be a theoretical mathematician. That is a true fact. And it was my number one thing. I always loved art, but that was kind of my plan number two. And it switched in the middle of being at college. But when I would always get asked about this, like whenever I give artist talks, like, do you think that's still in there somewhere? And I don't know if it's the meditative mark making as much. Maybe it is, but I always thought it had more to do with my interest in abstraction. Like I had this vision of myself when I was young, like say 13 to like 17 or something, or 18, that I would just be alone in a room with a blackboard and chalk and be just, you know, like whatever, the smoke coming off my head. And I was so far from being that person, but when I started to paint, like I wanted that same, just me and the canvas, like instead of the black king, it was the white thing and brushes, but I had that same idea of purity. Like I never really enjoyed working from observation or source material. I mean, it happens occasionally, but yeah, it was more that purity.
It's interesting because when you talk about, well, I think of the number, I think of Jonathan Borofsky, and I think also of the numbers, the marks, and the thing, whatever. Can you talk a little bit about abstraction as purity as opposed to, observation?
Well, I guess just purity for me, just in the sense, like as a younger artist, that I didn't want to paint from observation. I didn't want source material around. But also, when I was first really coming up as a, say, like late 80s, early 90s, the thing that bothered me about so much abstraction is it seemed humorless. And I didn't even understand, and it wasn't even just painting, like the art world to me at that point seemed really humorless. And I didn't understand it. And this phrase popped into my head about 1986 or 7 that kind of never left, which is that what I wanted to do was animate abstraction.
Cool.
And the first time I had that idea I was so freaking literal. Like I remember just literally making abstract paintings and putting like googly eyes in, just eyeballs in there. I'm like, okay, I guess that worked. But then it's the one thing thing that's kind of stayed the whole way is like thinking of these paintings as abstractions with stuff thrown into them. Like I kind of imagine this like stew pot of abstraction, but then there's like, you know, like the witch's brew, like there's some flags in there,
Yeah.
some flowers, or some letters, and it just, some images stay for decades, some kind of come in, things arrive at, you know, through necessity, you know, like a lot of, or whatever, the more political things
Right.
have arrived through necessity. Do we want to get to our other favorite topic?
I'm not
I'm
talking about
teasing you.
Pornhub in front of all
No,
these people.
stop! Stop, I'm teasing you.
What's our other favorite?
No, come on.
Alright.
Yeah,
I got you.
no, I wasn't, you did, you always get me.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that. No, but I am really
Yeah,
interested
yeah.
because I also think
Yeah.
when I look at your work, and it's interesting the notion of animation
Mm.
and also of kind of confabulation
Mhm.
of science fiction, of cartoon, of
Yeah.
satire, of totally serious,
Mm.
and then also an interesting, and I think it's from growing up in the house I grew up in, realism was the rule,
Yeah.
and abstraction was seen as not having content.
Oh,
And so I'm
interesting.
curious about your feelings about content, and that
Right.
will lead us as a segue to secrets.
Secrets, yes.
Right? Hidden things.
so-
Yeah.
I think, you know, I went to this great, I forget, was anybody beside David Humphrey there? There was this, stop wiggling?
No.
Okay.
No,
Stop wiggling.
That's what I always say when I get my haircut. Okay, I know David was there, I forget if anybody else was there, but there was this great talk with Amy Silman and Steve DiBenedetto the other day, and it was so much about content in terms of process and how, and I just relate to that so much. Like I think Amy had quoted this old review of his work, that the work wouldn't be half as good if it was just done instantly, like
Yes,
it didn't have
sure.
the endless struggle.
Right.
And I find that idea really interesting. And it's funny because up until maybe 10, 15 years ago, I didn't think that. Like I thought paintings, like if there was, I don't know, like some area like this, where
Every
I
change
kept
is
changing
starting
the
to-
color,
Yeah.
I kept changing the color, I'd be like, oh no, you
Right.
can see the thing,
Right.
the struggle, I better sand it
Right.
out and try
Right.
to match the color and all that kind of stuff. And now I have completely changed, and I think that it is really important because life is really hard and art making is really hard, and I think that struggle is very important. And I think that idea, the imperative of making things that are improvised is really important to me. I think that somehow like being alive in the moment and just being really present, even though there's many times I completely suffer because I just made these huge marks and just think, what the hell is that? Like I didn't mean to do that, and there was hundreds of dollars of stuff. But the other part of the content has just been, so, you know, to your very first comment about joy and anxiety, like when I was really young, the paintings always seemed kind of joyful, and I remember this crit class, like in the 1980s, where it was all dudes making these like really macho, dark abstractions, and I came in with these paintings that were like animals based on the dioramas at the Natural History Museum, like these frolicking animals. I was taking myself really seriously, but when I went into that room, I was so embarrassed, and then I remember the professor saying that he really liked them, that they were really innocent, which was a compliment that I took as an insult, like, oh, I want you to say they're really intellectual and powerful, and that, and it took me like a decade to kind of realize that was a compliment. So that those ideas have been there as content forever, but then at a certain point, like I was saying earlier, it felt like it had to be juxtaposed with something else, and as like political feelings got stronger, it made sense to me to bring that.
It's interesting because I also, when I look at your work and the evolution of your work, and also having known you now for 4
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
I think about those, the marks and the things that are not erased or fixed or whatever you want to call it, also as, you know, I mean, they're layers, but they also are to me about how all things exist simultaneously. And so it's not one or the other, but everything all the time.
Yeah.
Which is also to me a lot about the moment we live in, and the, like you call it, sort of the stew pot, where, and it's hard to know even sometimes what to give weight and value to, and I feel like, to me, that's one of the things that you're sort of recognizing. Is you're saying, well, wow, this is happening on this level, this is happening on this level, and don't forget that.
Yeah. And trying
Is that
to,
true?
yes, I mean, I was having this lovely conversation with this young artist friend about a week ago, and she was saying that she thought, I mean, she's known my work for about 5 or 8 years, that I had this impulse that I was always trying to make sense of things, that there was this given, I mean, even sometimes whatever, the given is also done by me, like the poor and the big gesture marks,
sure.
but like that what did you call it, the compulsive mark making, or you call it something else?
I think you call it
Obsessive mark.
compulsive.
Obsessive, whatever it was, but like,
I actually think it was more, I just tried to
it was a
meditate.
nicer word, meditative, it was a nicer word.
Mathematical.
Yeah, it was a nice word.
Yeah.
But that's like trying to,
about order.
yeah, that those marks are often like trying to rope everything
Right.
together, or tie
Control
it.
things.
Yeah, to control, yes, I like to control things.
Do you?
Yes, you can ask James and Abraham.
Right.
They
No, I
think
mean,
I'm
genuinely, because I would say it's
control-free.
interesting because the
Yeah.
notion of things falling out of control is also very much part of what I
Yeah.
see, and it's both playful and anxious.
Yeah. I mean, I like sort of the paintings to teeter a little bit on the edge. So I think, I mean, in terms of some of the symbolism in the work, like another thing that's been there for probably 20 years are different sorts of images that look like things are, suggest collapse. Like there's a painting in the hallway with bricks flying around, and there's a lot of planks and things, and there's some, I forget if some of them are up, but I'm sure there's a bunch with like the faux masking tape.
Yes.
This one has it, right?
Yeah. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. Right.
Like the masking tape, and there were a couple with denim patches. So yeah, it was just this idea of trying to hold, like literally trying to hold the thing together, and it sort of came out of this more, I don't know, formal idea I was interested in for a long time, which is like, how do you keep a painting alive? Like if there's a part that doesn't look that interesting, or whatever, is not what I want, what ways other than just painting over could I cover something up? And I thought about, at one point, just painting these, does this have it? I forget. But like painting these big rectangles on something, or just painting the faux tape. And trying to just keep reworking things, but make it feel really intentional.
So before we go to the thing that you want to talk about, can we talk a little about doodling, just because
Yes.
in this notion to just mark making?
Yes,
and
I
tape
told you it
and-
was one of my least favorite words.
Okay.
But it's totally relevant.
Well, I thought so, that's why I brought it up.
Because I feel like, old reviews of my work
Yeah.
would talk about like my doodling and other people who doodled, and it seemed.
I don't see
It was
it
a
as a
long-
criticism, I mean, I like the word doodling.
No, well, it was like when Trio Zuba said I was innocent. It wasn't a criticism either. It was just my, like, you know. I think being like a short, cute person, I with a cute little name, like I you know, and you know, when I was 30, I looked about 12, so
Yeah,
I was
totally.
resistant to a lot of those things. Not fair, but I was kind of resistant. But I have been thinking about that mark making, and I promise you, it's okay. Later, if people want to see, I recently dug out this drawing that I made in 1974 or 5,
Oh, right, you were talking
and
about
it's
this the other
so
day. Yes.
nuts. It's really
Yeah.
nuts. I wouldn't call it doodling. I don't know what I'd call it, but it's all ruler and rapidograph. A few people have seen images of it recently. It's pretty nuts, and it looks like Rachel in New York can attest to this. It looks like it belongs at the Outsider Art Fair, and you read an interesting biography about the person and their, mental illness.
Henrietta Darger?
Henrietta Darger, exactly. Yeah. But wait, why did I get on that? Oh, the doodling. But also, another thing I found, I've been in the last few years going through a lot of old piles of stuff, and I have the cover of my 6th grade notebook, which is like most of the vocabulary in these paintings.
Right.
There's big flowers. There's my name in goofy script. I mean, it's just, the techniques have gotten better, but
So is it sort of like the Popeye phenomenon? You are who you are.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But is that comforting? Because I always find that
Yes, I think so.
slightly upsetting too. But like,
Okay,
you cannot escape their first grade self.
I think this is comforting because I have this theory
I wore this in
about.
kindergarten. But same outfit.
I have this theory, and the academics here can tell me whether I'm onto something or not. But I feel like, we've been through years of very erudite art writing and art speak. But I kind of feel like now so many either artist talks I go to or shows I see or really interesting wall labels I read, you really find out that it's less about what someone experienced in their MFA program, and it's more like something that happened in 3rd grade.
Totally.
And it's so much I can think of so many examples recently. Just a really fast one, hearing Trenton Dall Hancock talk about his new paintings, and there are these plastic bottle caps glued on them all, and I thought, that's kind of a cool arty idea to make the painting 3-dimensional and blah 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 blah. And then he starts talking about how that's how he learned about color when he was little, and he used to play with these bottle caps. I'm like, okay, in there, I know that feeling. It's
Right.
It's just coming back to
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So let's go. All right, ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah.
Yeah. She keeps setting it up. We're fine. So, there are in these layers and puzzles and repetitive symbols like
Yeah.
the letter J
Yeah.
for Jane and other things. Questions about identity and
Yeah.
secrecy
Yeah.
and the power of secrets and the power of things that are both right in front of you and half hidden and that are in that dialogue.
Yeah.
All right. Over to you, Jane.
Okay. So 2 things. Probably about 2/3 of you know this story, but there's a 5-hour version, but I'm going to do a 2-sentence version. 8 years ago, James and Abraham and I did 23andMe kind of as a lark, and I ended up finding out that the man that raised me was not actually my biological father. Everybody was long dead, both the parents that raised me, and I sort of amazingly was able to find out that I knew my biological father. He was our family pediatrician. He died when I was 5.5. I have very fond memories of him. So there was a weird freaking lot to unpack, to be in your 50s and get this ba-boom. And one incredible thing happened to me about 2 weeks. That was incredible enough, but about 2 weeks after I found out, I was giving an artist talk up in Provincetown, and I ended it. I was going to be in residency there for a month, and I knew I was going to somehow make paintings about this. I didn't really know what, but I had a lot of very small canvas panels along with me. And when I showed my work, I got asked 2 freaking life-changing questions. And one was somebody in the room who had known my work for decades and said something like, you've always, it's weird, but you've always had camouflage or secret in your work for a long time. I'm like, whoa. And then someone else asked, and actually it's about, the painting is down there in the hallway. It's a red, white, and blue painting on a pink background from that I painted right after the first Women's March, that month.
Sure.
And so it has a bunch of black rectangles in it that weren't, it was kind of a cheat, painting out areas of the painting I didn't like, but I knew it looked sort of like censorship and redaction. And so somebody said, is there anything behind those? I'm like, whoa. So I left that talk so charged up. and started putting things behind the rectangles and thinking about the look of camouflage. But after, and so over the next couple of years, like, there were two things I really thought about. One, thank God I'm an artist, because I have to have some way to process. This is like so freaking intense. Also, thank God for having a couple of very close friends who were adopted as children to go, yeah.
I'm up for adoption.
You know, to guide me through what the hell this is. But then I started, like, as I was thinking, what is this new work going to be, and how am I going to deal with this? I started looking at my old work in this other way, and I went from saying, like, what is the work I'm going to make, to holy crap, in some way I feel like I've always been painting this story. Like, there's always been these paintings of, like, that are sort of this little girl persona who in some way, but there's something like off. And I just don't, I don't, you know, it's not like I really believe in some exact psychic feeling that I always, you know, I always knew deep down, but there was something that was so freaking off in my childhood. And so there's a lot, like, I mean, in a way, the knowledge was incredibly liberating, because there were so many things that never made sense that suddenly were like, oh, I get this now, and this other thing, and this other thing.
Right. But do you think there's a way in which sometimes we do know things that we don't even know that we know,
Yes.
because we have had, you know, juxtapositions or near misses or sort of half
Yeah.
experiences at a very young age that are semi-stored, but
Yeah.
they're not stored in language or in a coherent way, but
Yeah.
they become cumulative, and they look a lot like your paintings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
No,
there are
yes.
fragments that are
Right.
swimming around
I mean, there are
and are
things,
half hidden but not.
and some of them, like, are so ridiculously specific, but this is how I know this idea is kind of right. Like, okay, I have what I jokingly call the world's smallest birth defect. It's like, people call it murderer's thumb, or I don't know if other people have it here, and like the or it has a hammer thumb, whatever. It's like just a misshapen one thumb. And when I was a little kid, of course, everybody does thumb wrestles, and I always lost because my thumb was really short. And I would get teased about it, and I'd ask my parents, and they'd go, that's nothing. And like a couple of months after I find out who the birth father was, and I'm in an email group with a bunch of cousins, it suddenly fucking hits me for the first time in my life, I bet this thing is inherited. And I asked them, and what do you know? Of course. Of course they have it, or a bunch of them have it, or their fathers had it. I'm like, what the hell? How did I never, ever think of that, ever, until that moment? Like, yeah. And there's just there were a bunch of things like that, all these memories, like, that didn't make sense, that came back. So I do think there's something, that you know something that you don't really know.
Did that experience and the information change your identity or your sense of self?
For the first months, I felt like I was walking sideways. And the one that really got me, like, I mean, the majority of people in this room have had that experience of, like, looking in the mirror and going, like, oh shit, there's my mom and my dad. Like, how did my face get like that? And I was used to seeing both my parents in certain parts. So the fact that I wasn't seeing who I thought I was seeing, that really freaked me out.
Right.
That really freaked me out. I'm like, wow, it's actual visual thing. Like, Arnold Fine is not, that isn't his face. Like, that's weird.
Except, I have to interrupt you,
Yeah.
because the weird thing is, so I'm adopted, my kid is not adopted.
Yeah.
And when my kid was 2, I took a picture of her making my grandmother's face that she'd
Yeah.
never met.
Yeah.
So she'd never met her, but she had her exact expression
Yeah.
on. And I sent it to my adopted mom. She was
Yeah.
like, why is she making your grandmother's face? And I was
Yeah.
like, exactly. So
Yeah.
I think that there also,
Yeah.
there is the genetic whatever, but then there is also the, like, laminate.
Yes.
Which is also
Fair
interesting
enough.
in
Yes.
terms of your paintings.
Yes.
And,
yes.
and those, like, you
Yes.
know, because I think
No,
you have the
Abraham
laminate.
does.
Right.
For those who don't know,
Yeah.
our son was adopted, and yes, he sometimes, like, makes our faces and
Totally,
gestures.
because that's what happens is we,
Yeah.
you know, your face learns to make those faces.
Yeah.
And then we pass them and we go, why are you looking at me like that?
Yeah, no, that's all true. I think there were certain things that were just really liberating, like, and you know, you've talked. I mean, we were throwing around this idea about being outsiders, and okay, this is really fascinating because I interviewed Am 14 years ago before I knew my thing, and she had just written this new book, and I reread this interview a couple weeks ago, and it freaked me out how weirdly it had aged, because I said to her, let's talk about being out, like you talk about being outsider a lot, and you talk about it in terms of adoption, but hey, I grew up like feeling like an outsider in my family, like, well, hello, but and then I was asking you, like, well, what do you think about the difference between being an outsider in this way as an adopted person, and the fact that probably most creative people feel like outsiders anyway, and it's kind of like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious what you think. I sort of think about it as, in some ways, the observer. You know, the person who's there but not there, but always watching. So you're an outsider, but there's also a way in which I'm never going to be of whatever group that is, for so many reasons.
What about when you're in the like famous writer meetings?
Nope. No, because you know, there's different things about a person. So it's also like, you know, in my world, I'm adopted. I replaced a dead boy. Half the time I'm like, am I a boy? Am I a girl? Am I me? Am I him? What role am I playing? Right? And I'm totally dyslexic and I can't do anything. And I'm like, you know. So and everywhere you go, you're just weird. But I mean, on the one hand, a lot of us are artists, right? And we think we've all had elements of that. And I think sometimes for me, all of these things, including adoption and questions about identity, are the universal questions, but they're under like an electron microscope, which is also like your work, the cell structure. So it is interesting in that way. I don't know, what about you? What do you think about your outsider self?
I think, like, it was odd because certain things, like, there were a lot of things actually in terms of just my body that I was always really self-conscious about. Like, I have a sister who's 9 inches taller than me and weighs like 2 pounds more and is super feminine, like just looks like she, you know, everything's like flowing and lingerie and makeup. And growing up, I mean, she's 14 years older, so we didn't grow up together, but like, we're close in a lot of ways, but I would just, all through my adult life, I would look at her, I'm like, how did this happen? Like, did I miss some lesson? Did I miss the like femininity workshop? Was I, did I have the measles then? Like, what is this? Why am I like this? And and it really made me very, like, I mean, to be honest, until like I found this thing out, it really made me very self-conscious. And I had the good fortune to meet a bunch of people in the new family. We're not that close, but they're the children of my first cousins, due to whatever, a whole other little thing. But they're all about my age, but and I swear to God, most of them have my body, different head, but they're all my size. They're very fidgety. They all look like they are between yoga and like ping pong match. And I was like, oh, like if I had known that forever, I was teased for being short. Like I remember in 9th grade, they'd be like, oh, you're so much shorter because your mom was 41 and you probably were almost mongoloid. I was like, what the fuck? Like all these things is probably why you thought it's just so stupid, but like it really felt like this huge like sort of minor but ever-present weight that just went away. I'm like, oh, I'm just like that way because that was my father and he was short and these people are that way, and we all, that side of the family all laughs with their eyes closed, and that's not, you don't need to make fun of that either. It's just like the way it is, and and I think, you know, like I remember at the time, James and I had really a lot of conversations about this because he was like, well, why is that important? Like, you know, Abe was adopted, but I think the thing that was huge was just being lied to. You know, it's like just the book. Like, my mother had these stories about like I was the favorite because of blah blah blah. She wanted another child, and I'm like, you know, why were two teenagers in a horrendous marriage did you have a baby? Oh, okay, you know, yeah. So I think it just like knowing that truth. I think just. I mean, I feel like it's a lot of why I'm making my best work now. I mean, excuse the self-congratulatory moment, but because it just feels like some freedom. Yeah.
Here's a weird thread, but it just sort of occurred to me. It's interesting to think about the role of narrative, as in this kind of story,
Yeah.
and abstraction,
Yeah.
and the way that abstraction is not entirely without its own kind of narrative,
Yeah.
and its own kind of language and gesture
Right.
and all these
Right.
repeated things that you do,
Mhm.
but it's also a way of not formalizing the narrative.
Yeah. Because you know, what's hard for me is sometimes, like especially when I was first making work that seemed inspired by this, like I'd have people over, and the next thing I knew it was like a 5-hour conversation about, wait, how did you find out? And blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, that's not where I meant to be. I meant to be talking about color. And,
Right.
so, you know, maybe in some way it's like what you know, you said something about like how did it change my identity. I mean, I think after a certain point I'm like, oh wait, this is all still me. Like, it's just, I'm seeing myself different, like, I'm really not any different.
But maybe it's
It's
that
just
you
a
actually
person.
became yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Rather than questioning all of
Yes,
of why am I
yes.
this, why am I
Yeah,
that, why
yeah.
is my thumb, why are my eyes?
Yeah,
It was like, oh, I am.
yeah, yeah.
You own yourself now in
Yeah.
a way that you probably didn't.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I think like those paintings I made maybe whatever, like 5 years ago, where I was just painting my name in
Yeah.
huge letters. It was kind of you know, to reclaim
Yeah.
that. Like, okay, I am still exactly myself.
Yeah.
I have no sense of how long we're talking, but it's probably like 3 hours, right? Yeah.
38,
38, okay.
including the intro.
Yeah.
Well, let's go over to questions, and
Yeah.
if there's a dull
Yeah.
spot, I'll come back with it. I
Yeah.
only have like 7 hours more.
Yeah.
Does anyone have a question? I love doing this part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Well, I think it's interesting to hear you talking about kind of owning yourself and coming into yourself with this new information. I think there's also something that happens with age and maybe women at a
Yeah.
certain age. And so I'm wondering if you have any way of kind of like parsing any of those two things out, and what would you also say about you know, where you are in your career, in your life,
Yeah.
and you know.
I mean, no, I think that's a really fair point, and because both those things have happened to me, you know, it's a little hard. It's a little hard to separate. I mean, I think I feel like I've seen so many women artist friends like really blossom, like in their like 50s or 60s, or you know, often when kids are out of the house or whatever it is, and I definitely feel that anyway, like that I'm thinking more clearly, but I think just having something so pressing suddenly that I wanted to find a way to talk about was really a huge motivator, and it just seemed so. It seemed so interesting, like to have this mystery. You know, like there's so many things about the story I'll never know. Like, did my mother and the doctor have a one-night stand or a 19-year affair? Somewhere in there is the truth I'll never know. Like, did she tell people who are also dead? You know, I don't know. Did my father know? I don't know. So it felt really important to just get that crazy out.
Jane, it occurs to me that, I mean, not to give you ideas with paintings, but
Yeah,
it's
go ahead.
interesting to think about how one accounts for the ghosts, the
Yeah.
information that they're not going to have. How
Yeah.
do you paint that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah,
There's
that's
something
good.
really cool in that.
No, it is.
All the things one will never know.
Yeah,
And can't ask, but
Yeah.
that are right there. I mean,
Yeah.
we live in it,
Right.
But we are ghosts of,
Right.
you know.
And there's also, like, I had a lot of, there's anger in the painting sometimes,
Yeah.
and I have a lot of anger, like, how dare those people not tell me the truth? Those people, meaning my mother, like, especially.
And now, how you not know your own story and your own history?
Yeah, that's, so I think one way to paint it is like painting the anger
Right.
about that, Dennis has had really to hand up.
Well, I knew your mother.
Oh, that's right, of course. I forgot.
I didn't know anyone ever knew Jim.
That's right.
That was just, and I know.
And Dennis is my father.
How well did you know Jim?
No, the thing was, is when I first came to New York,
Yeah.
I had this job at this little co-op gallery on
I
Madison
totally
Avenue,
forgot
Gallery
that.
84,
Yeah.
and Jane's mother was one of the artists in the gallery. So
Yeah.
I always knew that Jane's mother was an artist,
Yeah.
and but you didn't really talk about that aspect
Yeah.
of it. And the other thing that was sort of, but could your pediatrician have donated sperm?
I
Maybe there was.
And Dick might want to tell you this.
No,
No donation was accepted.
Okay, so, I don't believe so, because he was 65 when I was conceived. So she was out looking for some sperm. I don't think she would be like shopping among the Medicare crowd. So we'll God, I totally forgot that. Okay, so there are a bunch of my mom's paintings up. There's right in the center of that wall is a little one. One of my most,
Which one?
yeah, one of my most favorite ones ever is in the back room. Jennifer can see it. That dark one is, I think, an incredible painting, which to me feels like sort of a little George Gross kind of, very World War One-ish. And no, I mean, okay, I grew up watching her paint. Like she was not that serious a painter before I came into this earth, but she really got pretty serious through my whole childhood, and she would stay up all night painting and forget to take me to school and forget to make me breakfast. But she'd be down in the basement in this horrible studio. And she was really passionate about it, and I felt like a lot of what I learned about abstraction was, I made up a term for her that she's like a third generation abstract expressionist, because I don't know quite what you call her, but like that's how she was working in this big gestural painting, and I mean, I said something to you, I think, in the email that like, for me, the painting is kind of always teetering on the edge at every point, but it was much more true for her.
Right.
Like there'd be paintings that I would see, and I'd go off to school and like, oh mommy, I love it so much, and then I come back and I would get sort of hurt, like where'd the blue one go? What happened to the blue one?
And what would she say? It's red now.
She'd give me some hard talk about like how, something meaningful about, it was just the process probably, yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about process and also
Yeah.
and color? I really do want to hear you talk about color. I've never asked you about it.
Well, okay, which one? Let's do a little color first. I mean, I feel like my relation, I feel like my sense of color has gotten so much better in the last few years, but it feels like it's very, I don't know, I tend to be squirmy when people say their work, they making these intuitive decisions, but I think I have to own the word for the moment. I mean, usually there's some pretty arbitrary and kind of intuitive, okay, like this one right here, right? So this was the other painting I painted at McDowell, and, or started at McDowell. And so, Prue and Ellen Carmelita saw it early on. Yeah, there's my studio.
Right, exactly.
And when I was first, like, prior to this visit, like most of my times at artist residencies, I would bring blank canvases and just think, let me experience life and see what happens. And I mostly did with this trip, except for this one. And, you know, I had that beautiful walk that Prudence was describing, like up, you know, from Firth up to, for those who've been there, it's like 15-minute walk to and from. And about a week or two after I got there, it was a beautiful autumn, and I just thought, like, oh, I'm just gonna paint my little fairy studio in the woods. And it was coming along for a bit, but I after working on it for a couple of weeks, for one thing, like the light and the color changed there. It wasn't autumn anymore. It was like suddenly kind of wintry. And then I didn't know what the painting was about. Like, I mean, back to this joy and anxiety idea, like it felt like it was joy and there was no anxiety in it. And because I had absolutely no anxiety being up there.
Right.
And I was about to paint it all out, and Prue and another art historian who was up there, Belinda Rathbone, saved me. And they're like, because I had it turned to the wall for a long time, they're like, oh, can we see that? And I didn't save, like, I think I just saved kind of this part, right? But it was sort of the crux of it. And I had this notion that when I came back to New York, I would find the missing ingredient,
Right.
like the anxiety.
Yeah.
And there were other paintings that I started up there that actually were, well, I mean, one story I started in New York that I brought up there that I think were really anxious. And I remember working hard. Like I was looking at a couple of them, like these are so dry. Like they need the joy
Right.
in them.
Does it say help?
It does somewhere in there, yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, I forget where it is, but I know it says it
It's
somewhere.
yeah, on the red roof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like that.
Just checking.
There's a lot of hidden things. This psychiatrist and artist friend taught me a word a couple of years ago. This phrase, asemic writing. Do people know this?
No.
It's like it's things that look like writing but are kind of illegible. And I thought it was so interesting. And there's some paintings. I'm not sure if they're ones that are up right now, but I started playing with the idea of things that start text that starts to disappear. So there were things that said like, you know, Henry Eisenhower was my father, blah blah blah. But it starts to get, yeah, it starts to get wishy-washy.
Right.
You know,
Illegible.
It starts to become illegible.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
funny because I think this painting is full of anxiety.
No, it is now. No, I think it is. No, I totally think it is. But yeah, it needed to be painted in New York. Yeah, it needed that. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I don't know, Barbara.
Just leaving aside the question, family background, which is so compelling.
Yeah.
For me, I knew about that, but what I didn't know about, and I'm totally captivated by, is this idea of the little girl, you know, fantasizing about spending her life in front of a blackboard. Because I didn't know that you were, you know, a would-be mathematician, and I, you know, this sort of fractured scribbling is so it's just so identifiable as your work, and at least as long as I've known your work. I mean, and they also feel like such blackboards. You know, like really, like that's more than any other word to me. But blackboards that also were, you know, lush, color-filled modernist kind of paintings, but they're blackboards too, and that's a funny.
Because there's like because the space isn't that deep.
Yeah, well, also if I think about people like Matthew Ritchie, or like, you could think of people who create cosmos, you know, I don't really think of them as so cosmological. I think of them more as a little girl trying to figure equations out.
Yeah.
You know, like there's something, and so I can't, it's just weird. I mean, this is a dumb question, but and I don't think there's any math per se in the paintings, but does math still, as a language, still intrigue you?
No, but I think that the way you said it, like that desire to figure something out. Like I remember what I just used to love about it is probably my completely illogical, fucked up family, is that you would just work really hard and then you got to the end of the proof and you're like, it's done, like
There is a
everything is
proof-
solved.
There is a
It's
proof,
like-
I think the word proof also is
Mhm.
interesting in terms of this painting, in these paintings.
Uh-huh.
Like, you know, they feel like proofs in a way, or
Oh,
some,
wow,
there's
I
a
love that.
craziness,
Thank you.
you know,
Yeah,
and
sweet. Alex?
Yeah, I have to absolutely agree,
Yeah.
and I just want to
Yeah.
add that the space and the gestures in the paintings are all coming out front.
Mhm.
So the thesis is such that you're working out the, it's not an algorithm, what is it? You know, the whole
Yeah.
problem in the painting,
Uh-huh.
and you're building out. So
Mhm.
the erasing back comes like he'll block it
Yeah.
out with, as if a brush were an eraser,
Mhm.
but you're building
Yeah.
a clear. And you're
Yeah, it's
taking
really cool.
the two
Yeah.
opposites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, Ali was trying to ask something about that.
When you're, and this kind of ties in with this proof, when you're looking at this painting that I know has been done for a while,
Yeah.
is your mind still making it? Do you think, oh, well, could do this, I could do that, does that lead into the next painting? Or is it like a proof, is it solved, and then you move on to
Yeah,
the
that's
next
great. God,
problem?
I love this line of thinking. I think, so often the way the studio is downstairs, like there's something, there's like that main wall that I'm working on, and then there's often like one next to it, and there used to mostly be one kind of in the peripheral vision. And that one, yeah, that was often the almost solved one. Like the one downstairs that has the big dollar sign and had that kind of once was a swastika in it. Like that lived on that sidewall for so long because it just didn't feel right, and it didn't feel right, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. This one feels done. I mean, and I think for me, you know, everybody jokes about that, like the million answers to that question, how do you know when your painting is done? I think it's when it doesn't do that thing you asked, like when I look
Where
at
you
it.
do keep looking
And
at it. But
when I
even
look
when
at
it's-
it and I just see it as done, I don't think about.
But even when it's done, like I'm not questioning whether that one
Yeah.
is done. But even when you know it's done and you've arrived at that point, like, okay, I nailed it somehow, something
Yeah.
is really working. Do you still, when you're sitting here looking at it, go, what if I had done that? And does that lead to
Sometimes
the
for a
next
bit.
painting? Or
Sometimes for a bit. Yeah, it all, in fact, the one, okay, this is, so
like how much
that
stays
shape,
open?
that weird shape on the very top of this painting that's sort of like a, I don't know, I was thinking of it a little bit like a grenade or that spiky thing. That appeared really early, and I always, like, I just kind of like that. And the bigger painting downstairs that actually ended up being left off that list, my young friend did. But the painting that was really, you know, the war in Iran inspired. It started with trying to take that shape and making it into a big thing. So yeah, sometimes it goes right from, and sometimes like there's that red painting that Prue really loved with a creature running through it. Like I felt like I feel like there's another painting in that, and I started another all red painting, but it's in a horrendous state right now, hiding behind the sofa. But it'll
Is
get
it
there.
hiding there because it shows stuff right there? I was like, I'm gonna go hide
It
that
did.
stuff
It
for a
came
while.
up. Yeah, it was
So-
just started.
So you're ready
and-
for me again?
Yeah, it just. I mean, yeah, it was just like all the impulses seemed wrong. I'm like, okay, I want to do the red again, and I want to do that sort of villain, and then it started to get really lit. Like that's my worst impulse when things get really literal. Like it had boots and a big gun. I'm like, oh god, and I can't draw that out. And then something else came back in, and it just needed to be.
Do you have that thing, because like in novels, somebody say like, how do you know when you're done? And then somebody else said to me, another writer, you know when you're done because if you kept working on it, you'd be writing a different book.
Yeah. Yeah,
things.
that's good. That's
Right,
good.
That's what it's
That's
thinking
really
about
good.
how-
Yeah.
Which is like taking, going, I want to make another red painting, but it's
Yeah.
not the same, because that one's.
Yeah.
I would be-
Yeah, that's a really good answer. Yeah, where you're just,
What about,
yeah.
do you get to a place where you want to go back into the book and rewrite? Or you just, no, you're done when you're done. So that's the same as Jane has that, like, forward motion.
David both knew my mother
Yes.
and
Not in that way, no.
no, and only one of my fathers, and knew me as a math major,
Wow.
briefly, but yes.
I'll just throw out that, you know, I've loved Jane's painting since she started painting, when she was literally just started painting.
Oh.
She had an approach that was just very materialistic and in your face and funny, but it was rock solid. And it was,
Oh,
yeah.
amen.
Yeah. It was immediately obvious.
I was like 17 or 18.
It's thanks to me that she brought
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you talk about these hidden narratives or reactions in your work, and when you talk about your mother's paintings, I was wondering if you could just sit here and stare at them and think about what is hidden there that you don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, I
I
haven't.
think there's stories there that have revealed themselves since the revelation.
You know, I hadn't thought about the paintings literally that way, but I have found things. Okay, I found the most freaking insane thing. I found like baby book where you just write whatever. Yes, height and weight and this stuff. And there are a bunch. I had seen them occasionally as a kid after my parents died. I grabbed a bunch of stuff and kept it here. And I've looked at it a few times. What I saw 2 weeks ago and I had never seen before is on the page that says family tree, where you write mother, father, grandparents. She had started to write, she wrote her name, she wrote my dad, she started to write my dad's name in pencil. His name was Arnold Fine, she wrote AR, and then she erased the whole thing. And that has been sitting on my shelf for 100 years, and I just saw it, and I'm like, whoa. I took a picture and I sent it to two good friends who are psychiatrists, and they both had the exact same response. You can't make this stuff up.
Like,
So there's...
it's almost like your mother wanted to tell you this.
Yeah.
But that almost is like the language of your work.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
like making a mark and then erasing it.
Yes,
and
it
then making
is, it is. I mean, it was so wild, and to just see, to just see it right there on the page, like, oh my Lord, God, it's right there. It's
What
right
was also that thing of baby's first visitor?
Baby's first visitor. So yeah, the thing I noticed about 4 or 5 years ago when I looked at that book, there's two books, and one book was my grandfather started for my mother, and because she loved his handwriting and he didn't thought it that much, she wrote in it for my brother and for my sister and for me, and there weren't that many pages filled out, but there's a page that's baby's first visitors, and it has like 3 people, and for each of the others, it's like, the dad, like one best friend, and maybe grandma. There's like 4 names, right? It's all very predictable, and some people like kind of reappear. For me, it's like under my sister, it says Daddy Fine or something. He's referred to on mine as Arnold with books, which, like, knowing her, it meant that he didn't bring flowers or lingerie or something. Arnold with books. And then my actual biological father, it says Dr. Eisenoff right there under baby's first visitors. And he had no connection to that hospital, no visiting rights, like he was okay.
Was he your pediatrician?
Well, once I was out, but he wasn't like, OBGYN or anything, so,
He was your sibling's pediatrician.
yeah.
So he'd been your sister's pediatrician for 14 years before you were born.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And how old where does your brother fit in that?
He's older, he's
older.
He's 17
Wow,
years older.
so
Yeah.
when did they start, does your brother remember him?
Yeah. My brother told me when we were trying to figure it out, my brother tells me the story that, I don't know, another crazy thing I never heard. He's like, oh yeah, I went with Mom to Dr. Eisenoff's funeral. I'm like, wait,
What?
what? Yeah, and he was like, he was home from grad school or something, because he would have been 22 or 3. He was home, and she went to the funeral and brought my brother as her baby. Okay, that's weird. Yeah. But I like this idea of how you, I feel like, whatever, everybody should stand up and eat soon and talk. But I love leaving with that idea of like how you paint, because it is incredible, like the things that you know, the bits and pieces of the story that I do know now, but really 90% feels like I will never know, and I
Right.
think that
But I
just
think
becomes
it's so interesting.
is really interesting. Wait, I just want to say a couple things before I tell everybody to go like eat and drink. I just want to say a bunch of thank yous, and oh my God, thank you to McDowell and Yellow.
Totally, yes.
We have some McDowell in the house.
Yes. thank
For
you.
whom these paintings would not, I mean, maybe some crappier version of them would exist. And without whom I would not, no, without whom, what's the right language now? Without it, thing, whatever. Without McDowell, I never met Prue, Ella, who put me up to this wackadoodle event tonight, and Carmelita, and Anne. Thank you all. Thank you to the amazing video team over there, and the door knockers and door answerers. And don't worry, I'm getting to you. And to James and Abraham, who is not here, but maybe he will show up. He has class till like 8:30. Who helped move furniture and find somehow 35 places to sit. And because I know she's going to watch on the video, our dear young friend Haley Bloomquist, who could not be here because she is working with an older artist who needs some help right now, but who, out of the goodness of her heart, made this whole list of
Oh, wow. Very cool.
so, and I don't know if did I forget anybody? I don't think so. But thank you guys all so much. Thank you all for coming. I feel so honored and touched and inspired and etc. I just remembered one other thing. Okay, go look in. We can turn some lights on too, but also go look in there. There's you can see a really great painting of my mom's and this incredible 11-part work on paper that James and I made. And speaking of him, we have this for anybody who hangs around upstate. We have this show that opens May 30th that runs through the middle of July in Millerton in a huge barn of probably like 6 big paintings each and a ton of little paintings. And if we're lucky, we are expanding that collaborative thing. So look at it now and then maybe you'll get to see it again. Okay, I think that's all I meant to say.